Hello, YouTube. How we doing today? It's Buckeye Mike and Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports, the two awesome people from the Young Guns. And we're here for our weekly show for you. And for the first time ever, depending on what you guys think, you are getting a live edition of Unscripted that you can hear us discuss and argue and debate what we think about certain topics that we're going to talk about. And today we have 4 topics for you, like we usually always do. And we're going to go about an hour. So I've already wasted 50 plus seconds doing this intro. So let's get into this puppy and hope you all enjoy. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm got some good topics at hand that we're going to be talking about, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. So, I want to start here talking some LeBron. Even though he's not always, the most liked person, we are doing a stat line tracker for him, considering he's 89 points now away from breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record. So, congrats to LeBron. He's also the first player in year 20 to record a triple-double. Now, yes, even though it's just barely a triple-double, 28 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists, it is still a triple-double. And his stat line's starting to trend the way I thought it would go for the rest of the year. I predicted in a video on my channel that he would average a triple-double the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. Well, you take a player like LeBron James, and he's super talented. And the fact that he's doing what he's doing at the age of 38 is incredible because, a lot of players just don't play as well when they get older. They can still perform. They still have nights where they can regain their old form and play well, but it's the fact that LeBron James is consistently playing at a high level at his age, and he has to because the Lakers are a team that's not really good. They have talent, and they should be better than what they are, but they're not one of the best teams in the NBA, even at their healthiest. So LeBron has to be great if they're going to have any chance to win. And he is. And again, it's incredible that he's doing what he's doing. The fact that, for a guy his size, he passes the ball well. He gets a lot of open looks to his teammates. He probably would have more assists if his players would actually hit the shots that he gave the ball to them on a lot of plays. They missed threes when he's giving them open looks. But he passes well. He's still rebounding at a high level, and he's putting up a lot of points. And he's going to pass the record really soon in a couple games. So, and if he plays another 3 or 4 years, he's going to have a big lead on that. So, again, for LeBron James, he's playing really well, and it's incredible that he's playing at this high of a level still. And putting up triple doubles is not easy because you have to be great at a lot of things, and he's doing that, and it's helping the Lakers out to a degree, but they still need more help if they're going to start winning some more games.
I completely agree. Where do you predict on an outlook he will finish in his career as far as total points, total rebounds, total assists? Because the other thing too was he also moved into 4th place in assists the other night against the Knicks.
Well, I haven't taken a deep dive necessarily on the records on everything, but he has a chance to definitely move up the list, and he could potentially be number 1 all time in assists. I don't know who's number 1. He could be far away from that, but he's just, as long as he keeps playing and putting up stats, he's going to move up lists, and he's just going to be all over the place on records and near the top on a lot of lists. And it's definitely going to help out his case or argument per se, to be the best player, that ever played in the NBA, or one of the best anyway. But I mean, to Troy's point, I mean, again, this is a great point, but he says, I wonder how his body would have held up, or how his stats being the NBA was allowed to play D. These modern players have made it with how the league calls penalties. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, they hit harder back then. I mean, that is definitely true. And today, I mean, you get ticky-tack fouls and a lot of technicals on plays that should not be technicals, or flagrants or whatever. So I agree with that. But still, I mean, he's been fantastic throughout his career. I do agree with that, though. He probably would have maybe run down a bit more if you were playing back in the 70s and 80s, because, I mean, you didn't really have rest back then either. I mean, how players rest now, like when they get older. I mean, like if you're a player and you're over like 30, I mean, you got them sitting half the time, on back-to-backs and all these extra games. And it's like, I mean, I understand you want to preserve their body so they can play longer, and that's great. Kind of like how Tom Brady avoided hits his whole career in NFL, and that's why he was still playing. But when you do that, you're also not doing your job necessarily. You're not playing every single game like Michael Jordan would do, even through sickness. He would play. So the argument kind of goes both ways. But, I mean, still, it's impressive what LeBron James has done. But, again, that's the whole era argument. If he played in this era, would he still be doing what he's doing? Would he be this healthy? Would he be putting up the stats? I mean, I think he still would be playing really well. Maybe not as well, but he still would be.
I mean, you talk about, resting on back-to-backs. You on occasion have moments like the cruddy way the game unfolded Saturday night. Coming back, getting the game tied, LeBron drives to the wreck, gets fouled, but they don't call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the NBA sees, okay, we did mess up by not calling this foul a foul. Mm-hmm. And so it makes me wonder, because LeBron sat the Nets game. It makes me wonder if the Lakers win the Celtics game, if LeBron doesn't sit for the Nets, or if he still does and it's just to recoup and rest.
I mean, that's obviously impossible to answer, of course. I mean, they're going to give LeBron rest anyway because, again, of his age and, not to overwork him anyway. But, I mean, yeah, that was a foul. I mean, it was. Unfortunately, referees are human beings, and they mess up. And a lot of times, and this happens in a lot of games, and that's why people get frustrated when you watch a game and there's a foul late in the game with like 1 second left, because a lot of times refs don't call fouls with like 3 seconds or less, because you don't want to impact the game per se with a foul. But if it is a foul, you got to call it. I mean, I completely agree. If it is a foul, you have to blow the whistle. It doesn't matter if there's 0.5 left. If it's a true foul, and that was a foul. But a lot of times they don't call a foul, but then sometimes they do, and that's where the argument is there. Because, I mean, literally, if you're not going to call a foul with 3 seconds left in the game, then you should never, or less, you should never do it. But sometimes they do, and that's where the argument lies. Well, why did you do it here but not here? But it is what it is on that. But I have no idea whether he would have played or not. But yeah, referees aren't perfect, but they definitely do let them play more than they used to. Like, not like let them play more than they used to. They let them play more in the past, but like they seem to be letting them play more like in tight situations now than they used to, like to not call a foul most of the time. But what's irritating is in the NBA is when they do call the ticky-tack fouls. Like you call like a flagrant foul on Russell Westbrook, on a Brogdon when that was not a flagrant. That was just a regular foul. So it's like they let him play sometimes, but then they sometimes don't let him play. It's contradictory a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, overall, to your point, it's not like it's going to change anything. I mean, because the thing is, I love LeBron. I'm probably one of the biggest LeBron supporters out there. And I think he's the GOAT, hands down. I think he's, great at everything. There's one thing that he struggles with. No, Skip Bayless, it's not being clutch. It's the one thing that Skip is always right about. Free throws. So to your point, even if they call the foul, doesn't mean that the Lakers automatically win that game on Saturday. Because LeBron is so wishy-washy from the foul line.
Well, I mean, that's true. He does miss free throws, at inopportune times. I've noticed that in the past. But, I mean, to your point about him being your favorite player, I mean, everybody does. I mean, everybody has a favorite player. I mean, usually if somebody has a favorite player and someone else likes this player better, then I mean that's where the whole this is the best player of all time thing. I mean, it's whoever the person likes best. I mean, it literally most of the time comes down to that. I mean, the way I look at it is there's a lot of great players and they're all great for their own reasons.
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, MJ is great. He has his own greatness. I mean, to your point, like you stated before, when we had the original LeBron MJ GOAT debate, who did you see the most during that time? We both saw more LeBron. The only reason I've seen Michael is YouTube.
Yeah, I've seen all of his highlights, man. They're awesome.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. The slight push on the Jazz player, and then hanging in the air in Game 6 and '98 finals. That's a good shot. The hanging in the air and freaking what's his name? The Cavs dude runs across in front of you, so you hold it in midair and then take the shot. That's an awesome play too. But I mean,
or jumping from the free throw line and dunking the ball.
Yeah, that's one thing where it's like, okay, LeBron's not. He can't do that.
None of us can do any of that stuff, man. I mean, we got to dunk on 8-foot goals and stuff,
I mean, I think that's really the one spot where Michael has LeBron. I don't think, unless LeBron's just messing around and it gets recorded somehow, you're not going to see LeBron take off from the free throw line and dunk it.
That's why they're all great in their own way. I mean, they had their own uniqueness. I mean, Curry is different than both of them because he shoots the ball at a ridiculously high rate. I mean, it's kind of like the point that Austin made one time about with Ray Allen versus Curry. I mean, and other people have said as well, Curry is in a time where you shoot threes more often than Ray Allen. Ray Allen was not asked to shoot 15 threes a game. So, I mean, what if Ray Allen was in a position to shoot 20 threes and like Curry, would he have more threes? So, again, it's all argumentative and it's all relative, to what a person believes. I mean, the way I look at it is sometimes my favorite player is not even one of the best. I like players that are average, just because of the person, or, just the fact that they try really hard, but they might not be the best player. It doesn't really matter to me. Like, I think LeBron's one of the best players of all time, but I mean, it doesn't have to be a person's favorite player.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be a person that can't stand LeBron James, but you still have to admit the fact he's one of the best players of all time. It doesn't matter whether you like him or not. He's really good. That's just the way I look at it.
For sure. I mean, even though we kind of got off topic a little bit, pretty much everything, which, we're known for doing.
Well, it kind of ties in with what's going on with him breaking records and everything.
Well,
it kind of ties into it a little bit.
True. Overall, just great performance from LeBron. I was kind of hoping he could average between 40 and 45 a game on this road trip, but it is what it is. It was still really good. I mean, the fact that it's a triple-double in year 20, it's the thing that gets me is like everybody's saying, oh, it's his first one of the year. Why didn't he get one sooner? If it was Michael, he would have got one like the first month of the season. How about you stop being rude to LeBron about it and just enjoy the awesomeness that he actually did it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, ugh. But yeah, so this topic was awesome. It was great. Now, let's go into some NFL. Let's talk about the impact of Brady versus Manning on the NFL.
I mean, this topic, I mean, is one for the ages. I mean, you could talk about this for hours. I mean, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are elite quarterbacks, you know? And again, I mean, obviously, who's better argument is probably going to lean more toward Tom Brady in every conversation because he's got more Super Bowl wins. He's played longer, you know, all that. But they're both great in their own right yet again, just like with Michael Jordan and LeBron. I mean, Peyton Manning, you know, the fact that he came off of a gruesome injury to his neck and he came back and he played and he won, you know, at the Denver Broncos Super Bowls and all that. I mean, it's incredible. And he was fantastic with the Colts, dominant, you know. Him and Reggie Wayne was a great connection. But then you've got Tom Brady. I mean, what he did with the Patriots for so long and the fact that besides Randy Moss, he didn't really have elite receivers per se. Most of the time, even though they were solid, and you had Gronkowski, and then he decides to leave, and go to the Bucks, and he wins another one. Even though it was against injured Mahomes, he still won the game. And, but I mean, like I said, I mean, I think both quarterbacks are fantastic, and obviously the best of all time. Most people are going to say Tom Brady, but I think both are fantastic. I like both quarterbacks. I mean, I think, you know, obviously most people probably like Peyton Manning's personality better than Tom Brady, but Tom Brady's, you know, he's all right. I mean, you know, off the field, both are fine, and on the field, both were fantastic. So I like them both, and they both had a big impact on the NFL because, I mean, you've got quarterbacks coming into the league now, and really you're already comparing Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Can they replicate Brady and Manning? Can they do it? You know, I mean, you know, you're great when you're every quarterback you're trying to see if they can replicate what they've done. And it's the same with the NBA. There's gonna be players that can they replicate the players from the past? So.
Yeah, I mean, they're both great. I obviously lean more towards the Peyton side. For the long time, I could not stand Tom Brady. I try not.
Some people. That's why I said more people probably like Peyton Manning off the field better, but they're both, you know, good guys. You know, I mean, they're both great players and all that. That's why I was saying with that.
Right, and I mean, because at one point I used to hate Tom Brady, and I don't like to use that word anymore. And it's not because of your PG ears. It's just, you know, everybody constantly telling me, like, you shouldn't hate somebody. Even if you really don't like them, you shouldn't hate them. Well, yes, I never really liked Brady, but, you know, seeing the end of his career start to come around within the last 4 or 5 years, I've grown to respect Tom Brady. I'm even going to make sure that I am there in Canton for Brady's Hall of Fame speech.
Oh yeah, and it's going to be first ballot. It is going to be, you know, the easiest induction to the Hall of Fame of all time. It's just.
Oh yeah, and they definitely should give him, you know, 20, 30 minutes or more just to do his speech. Make the class smaller and give Brady as much time as he needs. to get everything off his chest, and that one is gonna be. See, the thing is with his, it wasn't out because it was during COVID. It was like towards the end of COVID. So with Brady's, I think everybody's going to be buying a ticket to Canton for that induction for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, yes, stats wise, everything down the middle. When you look at everything, it's gonna lean to Tom Brady. I mean, there's even documentaries out there or videos out there about sorry, thought I had to sneeze. There's stuff out there not even putting Manning in the debate. It's because Manning went to 4, but he's 2-2. That makes Joe Montana better than Peyton Manning. So the debate really should be Joe Montana and Tom Brady. And even at that point, it still goes to Brady. It's like, well, I mean, it does. To your point, it doesn't matter who you put up against Brady to compare him to. Brady's going to come out on top. Why? At the end of the day, even if you take out the Super Bowl rings, everything else is still there.
It's basically LeBron versus Michael Jordan again. I mean, a lot of people like Peyton Manning better as a person than Tom Brady, but they're, both elite quarterbacks, and Tom Brady, the numbers are there. The Super Bowls wins are there. A lot of people like Michael Jordan as a person better than LeBron James. It's the same thing. People just like Michael Jordan better. People like Peyton Manning better. The stats are for the other guys. It's for LeBron and Brady. They're better, but some people like the other two better. So it's more about who they like better, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, when you look at the stats, it's who it is. But it doesn't mean that you don't like someone better or want to think someone's better if you want to. I mean, it don't matter to me because, like I said, there's players that I like that I think highly of that are not great players. That they're average players, but that's just the way it is. It doesn't really matter to me. I mean, I just admit that Tom Brady, and I'm not saying I personally don't like Tom Brady. I don't have any issues with Tom Brady or LeBron James, really. I just watch them play, but they are one of the best or the best at their craft. Whether a person likes either of them or not, you got to at least admit that they're great players.
I mean, yeah, basically to your point, you take out the as a person piece, you take out the rings piece, and you make any comparison between LeBron and someone else and Brady and someone else.
It's them.
It's them. Yeah. Because if you just look at the stats, you look at, I think it was Urinating Tree or somebody did an entire playlist of Brady videos. And one of them was, based on the way Brady plays at quarterback, would he have survived in the 1980s NFL? By the end of the video, it convinced me, and I think that was the whole point of the video, that Brady would have had success in the 1980s NFL. Why? Because if you look at the way he plays and the way it was played back then, it's virtually the same. Now, I've always said that, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are basically a carbon copy of each other, except Brady had all the right pieces that was needed and could, process the game in his head better than Peyton, even though those are the things that Peyton's known for, is like, the whole freaking Broncos got Wes Welker, so he took his center, Wes Welker, and another receiver out onto a football field, and they played a complete imaginary game driving down the field against an invisible defense. And it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, yeah. So because there's all other discussions out there too about like, well, okay, if you take Brady out of the system at New England and you put in like Aaron Rodgers, you put in Peyton Manning, do they have the same success that Brady had? And it's Aaron Rodgers, no. Manning, maybe. like ahead, maybe almost yes, in my opinion. And it's just because, Brady and Manning, I feel like both fit that system. And, for me, a lot of it used to be like, okay, I don't like Brady, but is Brady the reason New England's having so much success? To a degree, I never thought so, except for 2007 with Randy Moss, the 50 touchdowns. Because if you look at the Super Bowls, yes, Brady balled out. The defense, if you look at the scores too, the scores were low enough. It's like, okay, the defense is what won them that game.
Just like with a lot of Manning's Super Bowls, especially the Broncos, that was defense for sure.
Yeah.
But to the point about Tom Brady in the 1980s, I mean, I agree because that he would have made it. Why? Because the style of play that he does, he doesn't want to get hurt. He doesn't want to get hit. I mean, players in 2023 are still beastly. They might not be able to hit like they used to because it's the rules, but they still hit hard. I mean, you're gonna get hurt. But Tom Brady has managed, his health and his body so long that he's made sure he hasn't taken the hits that were gonna knock him out. And I think that's why Tom Brady would have been able to make it back then. I mean, the problem with the quarterbacks that run today is when you run the football, you put yourself at risk every time you do. It takes one hit, and it could end it all. Or you're out for a long time and you come back and you're never the same. So that's why, I mean, you look at a player like Cam Newton. I bring him up all the time, obviously. But Cam Newton would still be in the NFL right now if he didn't take all the hits that he took. I mean, he was he was a really great player, but he had to use his legs to be great. And once that went away, then it showed that he wasn't actually, a great passer. I mean, he could pass, but he was a great passer off the running because you had to take that into account. When he couldn't run anymore, he wasn't a pocket passer. He just could not sit there and throw 50 times, not run the ball, and he was all right. Tom Brady can't. Tom Brady doesn't have to run. Tom Brady doesn't run. He doesn't want to run because he doesn't want to get hurt. So that's why it's different for him. Same thing Will brings up here, RG3. I mean, his career got destroyed because running the football, taking hits. You can't do it. But and to Troy's point, longevity matters. Stats are just due to his longevity. His finals versus Peter Sell, my mom being second best never Jordan. I mean, on that's talking about the LeBron debate, but I mean, that's why LeBron and Tom Brady are going to have the stats because they played the longest. I mean, if every single quarterback played as long as Tom Brady, the greatest quarterbacks ever, then the stats would probably be closer. I mean, that's why Drew Brees is so close in stats. Maybe not in Super Bowl wins, but he is pretty close in stats. Why? Because he played into his 40s. Not 45 like Brady, but he played longer. But some of these quarterbacks that quit when they were 35 years old, how can you have the stats? You're not.
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of them were not capable of playing into their 40s because either it was style of play, they took hits, or injuries happen, or sometimes you regress and you're not as good anymore when you get older. And so that's another thing with Tom Brady. The fact he's been able to throw the ball still at his age with the velocity that he has is unbelievable because he shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, your arm strength should be like in Madden where it goes down. And then when your quarterback's like 37 in the game, he can't throw. But I mean, that's a game. So they project, but Tom Brady's just been able to keep that arm strength. So, I mean,
if you look at Brady,
mm-hmm.
Do you see a Super Bowl performance that they lost that you
Montana? It was really good. I mean, there's so many great quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, to point this out real quick, and then I'll go back to my point. Mm-hmm. I hear the side of the argument that I hear for defense of LeBron is, well, if Michael's the GOAT because he went 6-0 in the finals, then Brady is not the GOAT because Montana went 4-0. So Montana's the GOAT because he went undefeated, which I don't agree with. Yes, Montana was still really good, even though he donned the clover, which is fine. Which is fine.
That is the nicest thing you've ever said about the clover.
I'm trying to shift my dislike for game week only. Like if Ohio State or somebody I like is playing them, okay, then I'll troll you. But otherwise, I'm trying to be nicer and give respect to school that I don't like. But can you look at a Super Bowl that Brady lost and say that that Super Bowl is equivalent to the 2011 NBA Finals for LeBron? Because that is the one that everybody harps on. Because realistically, LeBron, yes, it still counts in the record book, but realistically, LeBron is 4-5 in the NBA Finals, in a lot of people's eyes. Yes, record book says 4-6, but 4-5 because even for the longest time, I don't even really know if he does still. Skip Bayless even said, well, don't really count 2007 because it was his first one. It was against the all-time unbeatable Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to be better for the group. So, so I mean, because to me, I don't know. I'd almost want to say Super Bowl 53, but they won Super Bowl 53. Maybe 42 or 46 just because of how close it was. But I don't know. What do you think? Is there a comparable Brady Super Bowl loss or win, really, that, should be harped on equivalently to 2011 NBA Finals? I mean,
now the Super Bowl 53, that's the Falcons one, right?
Rams.
Oh, Rams. Because, I mean, I would argue like the Falcons one. I mean, they should have lost that game. I mean, the Patriots should have lost to the Falcons, but somehow you just completely forget how to play defense. And then you don't do anything else on offense, and then they win. I mean, that game you should have lost. There's no way. I mean, all you had to do, Falcons, was stop them once in the second half or score once in the second half, and you win still. But you couldn't do it. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Spurs were great back then, so, I mean, it was tough to beat them on the LeBron side. But, I mean, Tom Brady, I mean, most of the Super Bowls that they won, I mean, they were the better team or, they played better. But, I mean, there were a couple that even that they won, they should have lost. And if he had lost, the narrative might be a bit different that Brady's not the best. I mean, because, I mean, that Falcons one was insane. I mean, they won, but that was complete collapse by the Falcons.
I mean, to your point, again, going back to because I watched the show, I watched enough clips of the show, and that's where I mostly kind of get our topics from. But going back to Undisputed, Skip and Shannon debate this all the time. And, when Skip goes tirade about LeBron sucks, he's not better than Michael, yada, 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 Shannon automatically goes into, well, if we're doing ifs, then, Brady should only have 3 Super Bowls. He should be like 3-7 in Super Bowl.
Yeah, but that's not how it happened. I mean,
yeah,
everything's so relative, man. I mean, you look at so many results on games and you say, well, they should have lost. Well, they didn't. I mean, it is what it is. They didn't lose, but they should have lost. I mean, that's why I don't like when someone says they should have lost and then someone responds back and they say, well, they didn't. Because and you're wrong. When someone says they should have lost, that is an accurate statement. I mean, even if it didn't happen, I agree with the statement the Patriots should have lost to the Falcons in the Super Bowl. They should have lost, but they didn't. at the end of the day, they won. And so the argument is kind of a little bit mute because they did win the game. But if someone's going to come up to me and say they should have lost, I'll be like, I agree, because they should have lost. And there's nothing wrong with saying it. But what hurts the argument, obviously, is that they didn't lose. So since they didn't lose, Tom Brady's record in the Super Bowl is not 3-7. It's a lot better than that. And that's why he's at the top of the list, on, quarterbacks, because of his Super Bowl wins and his stats and everything that he's done. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, even if you want to look at it that way, it is, you can't do anything about it. I mean, Tom Brady's record is what it is in the Super Bowl. But if you want to look at it the other way, he should have a way worse record and people's narrative would be a bit different. But they won, so I don't know.
I mean, to your point and to Shannon's point, yes, Brady could easily be 3-7, 2-8.
And the world would be a happier place if he was, right? Nah.
But he's not for a reason.
Yeah, because he found a way to win, even if part of it was the defense, but he came back.
I mean, to your point, so, okay, let's do a quick breakdown. Rams the first time in 36. They only won by 3. Should have possibly lost. 38 and 39, I believe, were all close as well. 3-point games. Could have easily lost if one play gets made in each of the first 3 Super Bowls. Probably loses. And then he's not seen again until 42. Oh, your kryptonite is Eli Manning, so you lost. Cool. Turn around, you're not back until 46. Boom. You lose again. Why? Your kryptonite came back. Eli Manning. And then you come back in 49. You win a game that you shouldn't have won because Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll were morons. Didn't use beast mode. Use beast mode or just have Russ roll out and do a Peyton Manning bootleg run into the end zone. You lose the Super Bowl. And okay, you go to 51. 51, we agree they should have lost. You almost never come back from 28-3.
I mean, to Will's point, Rams choked bad. Do you think the Rams choked more or the Falcons? I mean, I think it's the Falcons, but
it depends on which Rams he's talking about. Will, are you talking about 36 Rams or 53 Rams?
Probably the first one, right?
Might have to go back and watch that one in preparation for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty clear that Brady's record could be worse. It could be worse. But I mean, again, he found ways to win. He had help by the defense. He had help by the other team falling apart, but he also led them back. I mean, and the thing with Brady, it's not even just these Super Bowls. I mean, you got to admit, and everybody's got to admit, whether you like Brady or not, he's got the clutch gene, man. How many times in the regular season were they down in the fourth quarter and then he come back? He does it all the time. I mean, it literally, even with this year's team with the Bucks, and they were awful this year, there were games that he still brought them back. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's Tom Brady, fourth quarter, he's down, he's going to bring him back.
Oh, yeah. I agree. Overall, I think, this matchup, having seen it 17 times in their careers, very impactful. They set the standard for quarterbacks in the league. It's just sad to see that, Eli Manning is going to be a first or second ballot. Why? Because he beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. That's literally it. Plus, well, the other reason is his last name is Manning. Other than that, he's not really.
That's why a lot of people think Arch Manning is the top-rated quarterback in the 2023 class because his last name's Manning. I'm not going to debate that. But I mean, it is there are some deficiencies with his passing that he could potentially not be the number one recruit or quarterback recruit. But it is what it is. I mean, he could be really good, but the Manning name does draw. I mean, and that's the thing. We've talked about this before, and not to go off the deep end here, but it's like, again, when you have quarterbacks that win Super Bowls, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have won Super Bowl. And I'm not saying Eli Manning wasn't a good quarterback, but there's a lot of quarterbacks that won Super Bowls that actually weren't great. But they're regarded more highly than quarterbacks that never won it. And those guys were better. I mean, it's same thing with like a Chris Paul in the NBA, how he hasn't won a title. He's better than so many players that have won titles. That's to me, that's why I say it doesn't matter all the time. If you're a player like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and you're comparing Super Bowls, that's fine. But if you're going to compare this average quarterback, or an average player in the NBA to a more talented player that's clearly better, that has never won a Super Bowl or a title, I just disagree. That's when it doesn't matter. When you're going to compare, like we had the Danny Green, Eric Gordon debate, and Danny Green has, rings versus Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon's better than Danny Green. And Danny Green's a good player, but Eric Gordon's a better player, especially offensively, than Danny Green, but Eric Gordon hasn't won anything, so Danny Green's better. That's not how it works. If you're comparing two elite players that have a lot of Super Bowls or a lot of titles like Michael Jordan, LeBron, Brady, Manning, it works. But when you're comparing, average to good players, and you're going to give the edge to the worst player that has a ring or a title versus a better player that don't, I disagree every single time. That's when it don't matter, because the player that won the ring isn't the reason they won the ring. And Will's going to say Chris Paul is no clutch. I mean, Chris Paul's a great point guard, but I'm just saying there are players that have won titles in the NBA that people will say is better than Chris Paul because he never won a title, and I disagree.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, and I feel like this is the piece that people don't think about a lot when having a GOAT debate is overall player. Because, like, okay, well, LeBron's the GOAT because he'll have 40,000 points at some point, but Chris Paul is the GOAT because he's a heck of a passer. He's going to have the number one assist stat career-wise. It's like, okay, well, overall, if you look down the middle, who's better? It's LeBron. Chris Paul's good in his own way, but there's a gap of greatness between Chris Paul and LeBron.
Yeah, I would definitely want comparing them, but people would say that like an average player that won, a title is better than Chris Paul, when Chris Paul is clearly way better than an average player, but he doesn't have time. Chris Paul versus LeBron, it's not comparable. I mean, it's not really close. I mean, Chris Paul's great, but he's not Michael Jordan, LeBron, Bill Russell, Larry Bird. He's not those guys, but he's really good.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm in the boat of, okay, Ron, when he retires, even though it's an NFL topic, LeBron, when he retires, is going to look ungodly stat-wise, like Brady, where, Brady has all of his stats, and I'm projecting LeBron to have around 50,000 points, 10,000 assists, 10,000 rebounds by the time you retire. And, it's been pointed out plenty of times, he still has a good 3 to 4 years in him at least. And so that's why I'm thinking, okay, he's going to reach 40,000 easily. Probably going to get to 45 in 2 years. And then last year, he's going to hit 50,000.
And see, that's where the longevity matters as well, because again, he's playing so long and so well for a long period of time. I mean, players like in the NFL, like when you discuss players like Luke Kuechly, in the Hall of Fame, and his argument against him is he didn't play long, but when he played, and what he did when he played and when he wasn't out with concussions, he put up great stats. I mean, there are players in the NFL that are in the Hall of Fame that played 12 seasons, and Luke Kuechly's close to them in the stats. But he only played 7 years, and he was hurt 2 of those years, for over half the season. So he put up those stats essentially in 6 years of playing time. I mean, to me, that's Hall of Fame worthy. Because if he had played longer, his stats would have been even more ridiculous if he had stayed healthy. Granted, he didn't. I understand that. But it's like, that's where the longevity thing matters. A lot of players get slated or knocked down pegs in people's minds when they didn't play long. But they were great when they did. And I think that should be recognized.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as interesting as this has been, we're going to have to leave that there for now. We can always come back, especially with them both being retired now.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. I mean, Brady might be done for good this time, but who knows? He might come back again.
I doubt he will. I mean, did you see the video? It sounded pretty like, okay, you guys don't need to be mad at me this time. Don't be mad at me. You can't be mad at me because it's final.
I'm not going to believe it until he's not on the field next year.
The funny thing is, I think he'd have to be calling a game or being on the Fox desk.
Yeah, if he's on there, then yeah, of course. I mean,
because you could always go into the season with him not on the field, and then out of the blue before the trade deadline, someone signs Brady.
Yeah. A couple of questions before we move on to the next topic. Troy said Paul better passer than Stockton. What do you think?
I don't know. I never really watched Stockton. To Hummus's point though, I would probably go Steve Nash over John Stockton for sure. I mean, between Stockton and Nash, I think that I think both of these are good debates. We could go more in depth in at a later point. And two, I think that just overall, to me, and a lot of it is eyeball bias of having watched Nash. I think Nash is a better overall player than Stockton.
Mm. Troy said Brady play like a guy who had nothing left in the tank this year. I mean, he still put up 4,800 passing yards and 6-7 touchdowns. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like one of his best years. I mean, he had a lot of yards because of the way the Bucs were playing offense, but I don't know. Hummus thinks that Brady, I bet he stays retired and then comes back in 1 or 2 years. I don't know. Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, like I said, we're all going to find out what Brady's going to do if he's officially retired, if he's never coming back. But if he does never play again, it was fun watching him play, whether you liked him or not. It was just watching him, even if you wanted him to lose so bad and he won. I mean, it's just the fact watching that. I mean, Brady had some great moments.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Speaking of great moments and great players, how about is Mahomes Burrow the new Brady Manning?
Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, because again, this is going to keep happening. Until you have a quarterback that can reach Brady Manning like numbers and rings and all this kind of stuff, you're just going to keep having this debate with whoever's really good at a young age coming out of college. And Mahomes and Burrow, are great. I mean, they've been for their, young age, especially Burrow, they've been elite, early on in their NFL careers. I mean, Mahomes has a step because he's got a Super Bowl win already. And he has that over all these young guys, Herbert and Burrow and Allen, all these guys. I mean, he's got the ring. They don't. But so he's got the step there. And I just think Mahomes has just played at a fantastic level, even though a lot of people argue that Mahomes has had great receivers around him and the offensive scheme is so perfect or whatever that Mahomes actually isn't good. I've heard that argument before, and it does potentially have validity to it. But I still think Mahomes is really good. But he's been hurt. I mean, if you take away the injuries, I mean, they possibly could have beaten Brady in 2020 if he was healthy. Maybe. I don't know if they would have won, but he was hurt in that game. Remember, he couldn't even move. He was essentially had the same issue of this season. And if they lose this game, it could be because of the injury. So we could be looking back 10 years from now with Mahomes and say, hey, he could have won 3 Super Bowls in this stretch if he wasn't hurt. So, I mean, that's where it's all relative, you know, where you could say, well, oh, you should be able to play through the pain and win it anyway. But, I mean, look at Brock Purdy. He couldn't throw against the Eagles. So, I mean, is Brock Purdy, if he ends up being really good in the future and, oh, well, he choked against the team they played or whatever, the Eagles. I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, really? I mean, he couldn't throw. His arm shot. But with Mahomes, I mean, you have a legitimate argument to say that he could have won those other two, you know, this year's game if they do lose and the game against the Bucks if he was healthy. But again, that's is what it is. You can't really blame that, but who knows? They could win this game here and that won't matter. He'll have 2. But with Burrow, it's like, this is where I'm saying if Burrow never wins anything with the Bengals, and I'm not saying he's not, because he definitely can win a Super Bowl with the Bengals. But if we're 10 years down the road and Burrow has no rings at all, and then people will say, well, Burrow's not actually as good. Mahomes is way better because he has 2 or 3 Super Bowls, wins, and Burrow has none, just hypothetically. I disagree with that being concrete. This is where the Super Bowl wins doesn't necessarily matter to me because Burrow's offensive line is horrible.
Yeah.
Right now, it is horrible. So he's going up and he's getting mauled to death. So how's that all on him? I think that they need to get a better offensive line, and I think he can win a Super Bowl. Now, if they do get a better offensive line and he don't win a Super Bowl, then that's where you could make the argument, yeah, Burrow's not as good as Mahomes. But we're not at that point yet. That's where it's, again, the comparison is hard. It's very early anyway. I mean, Burrow can win 4 down the road, and Mahomes never wins another one. I mean, you just don't know. But right now, Mahomes has the lead. Regardless of the talent Mahomes has on the team and all that, Mahomes has the lead. But I do think if Burrow can get a better offensive line and he can start winning some, you know, Super Bowls in the future, then this could be a big battle down their whole careers like Brady Manning.
I mean, so this right here is currently 3-1 this guy. If he wins in a week and a half and gets his second, is this whole topic moot point? I don't think it is. Why? Because first of all, Mahomes started in the league sooner than Burrow. The other thing too is with the 2 down on that end underneath you, people forget that the first 3 years of that matchup, the Colts and the Patriots were in the same division, so they played each other twice a year. You know, we have been lucky just to get this one twice for 1 year. We got it last year twice. Actually, I think we got it twice this year too, so that's 2 years in a row. Because they had the 1 regular season matchup and the AFC Championship matchups. But I mean, you know, to your point, if he wins 2 to 3 more, and it takes him a long time to win one or multiple, I still don't think that it gives him the edge necessarily, to your point, because if he's doing it faster than him, but his stats are not. If you look at his two Super Bowls he played in, his QBR was so low. It was under 50 in both. His QBR in his win was like 42 in a win. In the loss, it was like 30 something or
He was
40.
hurt in that game. I mean, like I said, that game to me is a wash. It doesn't even matter because he was clearly not even 50% in that game. He was just playing through the pain. I agree in the Super Bowl win he wasn't great, but he won, so that it doesn't matter. But that's where I'm saying with Mahomes, it's just going to come down to, like, even if he wins this game, against the Eagles, I mean, he's been hurt at the end so many times that it's reduced his performance. I think it's less of a with Mahomes that he's not playing as well in the big game versus he hasn't been healthy in the big games most of the time. I mean, because like Josh Allen with the Bills, you lose to the Bengals 27-10, and he's healthy. They just lose. That was bad, and it was on your own field, and it starts snowing. And even though it does snow in Ohio, I mean, you would think the snow would benefit the Bills, but it didn't. I mean, Burrow's throwing through it. He's throwing through the snow. The Bills lose. Like, that was a terrible loss. I'm not suggesting Josh Allen isn't good at all. I think Josh Allen's still really good, and I think he could win a lot in the future, but that was a horrible loss. That was not great. But with Mahomes, it's like I wish Mahomes was healthy, in all these games, because then you could really argue for or against Mahomes. But that's why I'm kind of like on the fence, because I'm like, the game he lost, he was hurt. And now in this game, he's not going to be healthy either. And if they do lose to the Eagles, especially if it's like a one-score game, then it's like, okay, if he was healthy, he probably would have won this game. And I mean, Mahomes is going to need his receivers back as well, because I mean, a lot of them are banged up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, this was a bad loss for the Bengals. They should have won this game against the Chiefs. I mean, you're playing against beat up Mahomes, and you've got all the receivers out. They should have won. It was not a good loss, and that's why I'm saying that he's got to get a better line. Burrow needs a better offensive line, and I think they can win more games.
Yes, because I mean, to your point in the live that we did the other day, maybe it was a bad thing that Burrow completed that bomb of a 4th and 6 to Chase. Burrow is getting caught in the trap that Burrow always tries to avoid. What trap is he? He's getting caught in the trap of, I have one really good receiver. I'm always going to go to that receiver. And no, the refs did not help the Bengals at the end.
I agree. We talked about this the other night when we recapped the games. I mean, I basically said that the refs didn't help the Bengals. There were a lot of bad calls, but the Bengals still could have won if they played better. And they played horribly at times. And like literally, when I was watching the game with family, I was like, they were all cheering because I mean a lot of people that I knew wanted the Bengals to win. Some wanted the Chiefs, but it was more Bengals. But I was like, you're happy that they got this 4th and 6, and it was a great play. And I'm like, it's gonna come back to bite him because he's gonna keep doing it. It worked, but it's not a good play. It's a terrible play. Jamar Chase made an incredible play, but the play call was bad, and the play itself was bad because it shouldn't have worked. It just did. It had a low probability of working, and then Joe Burrow just keeps doing it, and then he gets a pick on a play that was in double coverage. It was tipped and intercepted, and he kept throwing it over and over again. My thing, it's like it's a great play call if it works, but it wasn't a great play call in the first place. Should never even have gone for. Should have punted.
I mean, I don't know if it was not a great play call because I mean, okay, if it's 3rd and 6 and you call that, and it's single coverage, I know you're starting to eliminate enough pieces. It's like, okay, that could be a great play call in that situation, but it's like, for that situation, yes, not a great play call. As a regular play call in any circumstance, as long as it's single coverage, because that automatically goes back to your point of not a great play call. It's double coverage.
Yes.
That between that and calling it on 4th and 6 makes it not a great play call, to your point. Call it at any point, single coverage, probably a great play call.
I mean, when you have a receiver that's being double covered or whatever, there's somebody open. And I mean, we saw this with Dallas in the 49ers. How many times was CeeDee Lamb in double coverage? Dak throws it to him, and you have T.Y. Hilton open or somebody else is open. Didn't throw it to him. And it's like, I understand, Dak, that you trust CeeDee Lamb way more than T.Y. Hilton. I mean, I would too. But would you rather throw it to wide open T.Y. Hilton or double covered CeeDee Lamb? I'd rather throw it to wide open T.Y. Hilton. And if he drops it, that's his fault. And everyone's going to blame T.Y. Hilton. They're not going to blame you, Dak. If it throws on right to him and he drops it, that's on T.Y. Hilton. But you have to throw it to the right person. And the right person is not always the best player because the best player is going to get more attention.
I mean, it's like when you look at Burrow, he's so dependent on Chase. Why? Because they went to LSU together. They have that coalesce or whatever, that they mesh well. But you see the throws like the one you keep talking about, the 4th and 6 bomb to get inside the 10-yard line. And then you look at the outside check down to Hayden Hurst that went for like 20. Burrow needs to go back to Burrow ball and not desperate Burrow. Go back to Burrow ball. Cincinnati wins that game. And I mean,
and his O-line's not great, but how to fix that is you get the ball out quick. And you get the ball out to your screen player or your tight end that's 5 yards down the field. And then when you keep doing that, then the safeties come up, and that's when you can throw the ball down the field. But you just can't keep doing it over and over again because then they'll see a pattern. And then that's when they're going to double cover the deep guy. And they're going to be like, well, okay, Burrow's going to throw it anyway. So that's the problem. You have to make the defense pay for what they're giving up. And if they're giving up the easy short pass, you throw it to them. If they're starting to cover that, throw it over the top. That's when you throw it to Chase or T. Higgins deep because you can now. They're coming closer to you. You have to. It's chess. That's why they always say football's like chess. You have to work it. Whatever they're doing, you do what they're giving you. And if it's the deep ball, throw the deep ball. If it's the short pass, you throw the short pass. And even though the Cincinnati O-line is bad, Burrow made errors in the game. He did. And Burrow's great. He's awesome. But he made mistakes. And some of it's youth. But you can't do that when you're so capable, of making the right play. You have to make the right play. And I know it's tough. And it's tough when you're in Arrowhead and it's loud. And it's tough when some calls aren't going your way and you can get irritated and stuff like that. Sometimes things don't go your way, but still, they could have done a little better.
Yeah, I mean, yes, things didn't go Cincinnati's way, but all you had to do, Cincinnati, was score on one other drive. You had 5 drives at the end of the game. You didn't score anything.
Yeah, that's what I said to the people I was talking about that like family members about the refs. I was like, they had 5 or 6 chances to score and they didn't. To Will's point, do you guys think the Cowgirls would have won if Tony Pollard didn't get hurt? That's Scooter McGrew's excuse. Well, for one, I mean, to be nice, the Cowboys, I mean, I said it when we were live talking about this game. I did say that Tony Pollard going down hurt. And why did it hurt? Because he is so much more explosive than Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott is a great running back to give you 2 or 3 yards. 4th and 1, hand the ball off because we don't want Dak to sneak it. Okay, it works. 3rd and 2, give the ball to him. But Tony Pollard's the guy that can give you 20, 30 yards. He's a really good receiver out of the backfield. He's a player that Dak is comfortable throwing the ball to in situations where he panics. I think that you would have seen less of the CeeDee Lamb double coverage throws if Tony Pollard was still in the game. So, yes, Tony Pollard exiting the game was a big deal. Now, would they have won the game? I'm not saying they would have won because Dak still could have made mistakes or they just didn't score. But, yeah, it did impact the game because they played a lot better when he was in. And that is a fact.
Yep. Well, I think that we should probably quickly go into our last topic here. And this might be fun for everybody. It may not be fun. Let's find out. Let's talk some Mount Rushmore. So, who would be on your NBA Mount Rushmore and why?
I mean, it's almost impossible. I mean, to definitively put together a Mount Rushmore list that people will agree with. I mean, my mind, when I think of best players, I mean, I could put 20 players, 10 to 20 players, that could be on there. But I mean, you have to have LeBron and Michael Jordan. I mean, we've already talked about them at length, but I think they got to be there. There's no way you can't put them on there unless you're doing old era of basketball that doesn't include them. Then that's fine. But I mean, I think they got to be there, no matter what. And then, I mean, Will just put it in the chat. Bill Russell, Larry Bird. I mean, I was kind of leaning that way as well. No lie. Because I mean, Bill Russell, it's a long time ago, but he won so much, and I mean, he was just dominant. And then Larry Bird was just elite, man. But I mean, there's other players you could put on there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are so many other players. I mean, Kobe Bryant, I understand, is not, he's essentially Michael Jordan, but in a lot of people's minds, barely not as good. But he was great. And then you got Dirk was great. I mean, there's other players that you could put on the list. But I mean, if you're going off of greatness at what they did and in winning, it's probably what Will has. Larry Bird, MJ, LeBron, and Bill Russell. But
so that's your Mount Rushmore?
I was leaning that way. But there's like 3 or 4 that are right there. What do you got?
At the front, at Washington's head, I would assume that's probably obvious. That one for me will never change. LeBron James, front and center. Behind him, Michael Jordan.
Yep.
After that, I'm going to say Magic Johnson.
I mean, he's right there. Like, again, Kobe, Magic Johnson. I mean, these are players for me are like right on the outside. I don't know. I mean, you could really interchange them. And who's your last one?
I mean, if you look at, because my thing is, Michael is next to LeBron because of the GOAT debate. Because, it's so neck and neck. Because if you take out the ring discussion, which I know you can't take it out because it's a part of it. But if you take it out, it's pretty much down the middle. And it's more of like, oh, who did you see the most? And who do you like more? What it comes down to. And it's just any sport. And then, Magic, because Magic is kind of like a mix between Michael and LeBron before they both were in the league. Now the fourth one, Lincoln's spot, that one is tough for me because to your point, you could literally put like 6 people in one spot. Kobe could be in there.
Yes.
Bill Russell, yes. Larry Bird, to some point, maybe Ray Allen to some people you could put in there. Maybe not as much, but, some people.
He's putting up ridiculous numbers with the 3-point shooting is probably on the fringes of a lot of people's mind. I mean, I'm selling. There's like 6 to 8. I mean, everybody that you said I could put in the top 4. I could, like, if I said Kobe Bryant, if I had him at 4th, if it came out of my mouth, I would believe it. You know what I'm saying? Larry Bird at 4, I could believe it. Magic Johnson at 4, I could believe it. All of them are there. They're right there. I mean, Bill Russell is because of the winning. I mean, he's all the titles, and I really don't like to look at it. It's just that, and the era was different, but he was elite.
Oh yes, and I give him complete props for that. And this makes this hard because yes, this was a segment just kind of threw together. Second of all, it really should be 2 different Mount Rushmores. It should be a modern day Mount Rushmore of NBA players.
And like pre-1980.
Yes, and it should be like a pre-1980 Mount Rushmore, because if you do a pre-1980 Mount Rushmore, Bill Russell is at Washington's spot in that
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so LeBron, MJ, Magic. I'm gonna give my Lincoln spot to. Hmm, I'll go. You know what? It's gonna look a little lopsided, but I'm gonna go with Kareem actually.
And that's another one. He's like right there. Then I didn't mention him. He's right there as well. Because I mean, he's number one in the points right now for very brief, not much longer, but he's number one in the points. And the sky hook and just ridiculous. You know, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, that's what they always say when you're great, you created a move. You know, the sky hook. I don't know.
I mean, because you've got the five that we already mentioned. You got Dr. J, could go up there. Hakeem Olajuwon potentially.
Chamberlain.
Hope Chamberlain. Oh my God, I can't. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. He calls college basketball now. He played for the Celtics. Bill Walton.
Oh yeah, the Pac-12 guy, UCLA.
Yeah, I think he could go up there for sure.
Oscar Robertson.
Mm-hmm. Steph Curry. I mean, he is on the edge. I think. You know the interesting.
I mean, those are all the old era guys. I mean, you can put all those on the old era. I've listed like 8 from the old era. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, sure. Like not Walt. I mean, I don't know if Walt's as good as those other guys. I mean, to be honest, but I mean, he's a great commentator to listen to if you're like tired. I mean, literally, he's only a great commentator to listen to if you're tired, and it's like 11:45 a.m. You know, and you're about to fall asleep, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's talking about cactuses or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But then it's like if I'm awake and I'm actually invested in the game, and he's doing, I'm like, come on, Bill Walton, you're terrible. You're not even talking about the game, and I don't care about this. I want to actually hear you break down like you're supposed to do between UCLA and Arizona, not this. So for me, Bill Walton, it's like sometimes he's funny to listen to if I'm like about to fall asleep. But then it's like if I really invested in the game, no, I mute him.
That makes sense. I mean,
But as a player, he was good. I don't know if he's in the elite. He was good though. Because I mean, this is elite company here. This is like the best of the best. Like I said, I've listed 8 players from the old era, and there's 4 spots for an old Mount Rushmore. So you're leaving out great players on that.
yeah.
It's impossible.
Oh yeah.
I mean, literally for me, I think Kobe would be on a lot more people's lists if LeBron, not LeBron, but Michael Jordan didn't exist, because they're almost the same. And I know people are saying they're not the same, but they're similar players. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that Michael Jordan basically just did everything a hair better, then that's why Kobe's not on a lot of the lists, you know, of like top 4 best. Because I mean, they're almost the exact same.
Oh yeah.
Tim Duncan. Yeah, again, that's another one that's like
We forgot.
I mean, yeah, I mean the Spurs, man, they were.
I mean, you know,
Watching him when I was younger, he was really good, even when he was older.
maybe a Mount Rushmore, even though it gives more of like where people's, what do they call that, loyalties lie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a Mount Rushmore is not necessarily a good way to do this. Maybe.
I mean, to Troy's point as well on MJ versus Kobe, MJ was better at D. I mean, the only thing with Kobe is he shot more threes than MJ. I mean, it was different era as well, but he shot more threes. But I agree. I mean, Michael Jordan's better than Kobe Bryant. He is better. But like I'm saying, I think Kobe would be higher on people's lists if Michael Jordan didn't exist. It just is what it is. That's why he always was like, I'm my own person, because he was compared to Michael Jordan. at every constant turn because they're so similar. And Michael
Right.
did it a little bit better for the most part because they're both great. I mean, literally, if you just want to, put that type player on a list, I mean, it's Michael Jordan / Kobe, for that type player. I mean, the way they played, the dunks, the three, the clutch shots, everything. Just Michael Jordan was flashier and one more. Is what it is.
I mean,
a little better at defense.
I mean, maybe, and we can wait to come back to this at a later time. That way we can actually put a list together and like, okay, here's why this person's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and I could actually analyze the stats and say, well, hey, this and then this. Yeah.
So maybe instead of a Mount Rushmore, the next time we do this segment over again, maybe we do a top 10 NBA players, and then we need to have a private discussion about, okay, do we want to do like cutoff is 1980? 1980 gets its own, 1980 to now gets its own top 10, and pre-1980 gets its own top 10. I think that, there's a lot.
Be hard. It would still be extremely hard because then you'd be like, well, there's this guy at 11 that I really want in the top 10, but he just didn't win enough or the stats aren't there. He didn't play long enough, but he's right there. It'd still be tough, but it would be more definitive because, I mean, at least you're basically putting down the best.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, to your point, there's like, it's hard to give a definitive Mount Rushmore for this. And, there
really is no definitive. I mean, you when you put a list together, I mean, it could be as accurate as possible. The stats are there, but there's still going to be disagreements. I mean, there's still going to be people who say, well, this guy should be on the list. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes the debate fun or the conversation.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. Well, this has been awesome. I think we've kind of ran the well dry on this discussion as well for now. So this was awesome. This was more fun doing it live from New York. It's Saturday night.
Good night, everybody.
But so yeah, I've enjoyed this time with the chat. Really enjoy it with you. I always enjoy it with you. You're awesome.
Thanks. You're awesome too.
And I think even though I'm doing a bad outro, we will see y'all next time. And tune in next week as we give you yet another episode of Unscripted. Thanks, everyone, and have an awesome day. Thanks for being here.